Good morning, dear students. How are you all? So in the last video, you had studied the poem Laburnum Top. Today, we are going to take up the new chapter from your Hornbill book, that is The Landscape of the Soul. It is written by Nathalie Trevorroy. Nathalie Trevorroy is the wife of the Belgian ambassador to India, and she is an art historian. I believe you know what is art and an historian. A historian is a person who studies and makes observation of the history of the world and the civilizations. The history of art dates back to our civilization. If you have read history, maybe Chinese civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, all these civilizations, they also had this kind of art which was shown in the excavations by the archaeologists. So Nathalie Trevorroy, who was an art historian, had made a study of the Chinese civilization, the art there, and the art from the Western or the European countries. In this chapter, she has described the Chinese art and the European art, thereby drawing a contrast between the two. She has described the difference between the Chinese art and the European art. The Landscape of the Soul, the title itself tells you that it is a landscape of the soul. Now this particularly refers to the Chinese art. In this chapter, we are going to read about the Chinese art, what is its specific quality, European art, how does the European painter influence its viewers, and what is Feng Shui according to Chinese people. Now in this chapter, we are also going to read about the outsider art or the art brute. And if you must have heard about Rock Garden in Chandigarh in India by Nek Chand, that is categorized as the outsider art. Outsider art, according to the author, is an art in which the painter is not formally or informally considered to be a painter. So we will read about all these things in this chapter, and I would request you all to download the chapter from the NCERT books app that you have downloaded earlier and read the chapter carefully. In this small chapter, you come to know about the difference between the Chinese art and the European art. So before we begin, I would request you all to take note of the assignments that I'll be giving in this video. Thank you. So dear students, today we are going to read the chapter Landscape of the Soul by Nathalie Trevorroy. What is art? Let us first understand what is art. Art is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. Now, when we talk about art, I believe most of you must be thinking it deals with drawing and painting, but it is beyond that. Art has many fields in which we can include sculpture, architecture, poetry writing. So all these can be included as art because they express the creative skill and imagination. Now you must be wondering, why am I talking about art? as I told you before in my introduction a few minutes ago, that this chapter is all about Chinese art and European art. What is the basic difference between them? Nathalie Trevorroy, the author, has discussed about the difference between the Chinese art and the European art. She has also talked about the Indian art, in which she has talked about the outsider art. Now let us take art in the perspective of painting. Now when you are asked to paint a landscape, so dear students, let me know whether you know the what a landscape is. I know most of you may be knowing a landscape is all about mountains, trees, clouds, rivers, lakes, etc. So when you are asked to paint a landscape, you can see now look at this beautiful picture in front of you. What does it show? It is a landscape. Landscape which includes mountains, rivers, lakes, seas, trees, etc. So here is the summary of the chapter Landscape of the Soul. In this chapter, the writer contrasts two forms of art, Chinese art and European art, by using two different stories. In China, during the 8th century, the Tang Emperor Xuanzong commissioned a painter Wu Daozi to decorate a wall in the palace. Upon seeing the wall painting, the emperor started noticing the outer appearance of the painting, but the painter drew his attention to a cave at the foot of the mountain. The painter told the emperor that he would take him inside. The painter entered the cave and the entrance closed behind him. As soon as the painter clapped his hand, the painting on the wall was gone, and so was the painter. In another story, a painter would not draw an eye of a dragon as he feared that the dragon would fly out of the painting. In another story, to represent a European art form, a master blacksmith falls in love with the painter's daughter. The father did not approve of him because of his profession. The blacksmith sneaked into his painting studio and painted a fly on the painter's latest panel. The fly seemed so real that the painter tried to hit it first before realizing it was in the painting. The painter accepted him as a trainee in his studio. The blacksmith married the painter's daughter and later became one of the most famous painters of his time. These stories revealed as to how art form is believed to be followed in two different regions in the world. In Europe, an artist wants the viewer to see a real viewpoint by borrowing his eyes. The art must be perfect and must be illusion likeness, whereas in China, the artist does not paint a real one, but uses his inner and spiritual voice to create an abstract piece. The viewer can enter the painting from any point and can enter the painting or travel according to his own imagination. The artist wants the viewer to enter his mind and create a path of his own. This concept is called sanshui, which means mountain water. When they are used together, they make the word landscape. So before we read the text, let us discuss the words and phrases that you will come across during your reading. Anecdote. From the text, the meaning of anecdote can be inferred as a short account of a particular incident or event, especially of an interesting or exciting nature. Delicate realism. It refers to the alluring quality of the art which makes it seem real. It is an interest in or concern for the actual or real as opposed to abstract. Illusionistic likeness. It refers to an adjective of the technique of using pictorial methods in order to deceive the eye. The reference is to an illusion created by the semblance of something. Pictorial methods means the picture method, using the exact picture which may be resembling and creating an illusion. Figurative painting. A figurative painting refers to the metaphoric representation of a piece of art through the eyes of the creator's imagination. Conceptual space. It refers to relation with the abstract than the factual representation. This is the incalculable dimension of the understanding of concepts. So, conceptual space is actually not the real painting or the objects on the painting. It refers to the relation with the abstract. This is the incalculable dimension of the understanding of the concepts. The painter understands the concept and then produces a painting. Now, in this first story, the author Nathalie Trevorroy has discussed and described about a Chinese painter who was a famous painter, Wu Daozi. A wonderful old tale is told about the painter Wu Daozi. He lived in the 8th century and he was commissioned by the Tang Emperor Shangzong to decorate a palace wall. He had hidden his work, his painting, behind a screen, so only the emperor would see it. For the long while, the emperor admired the wonderful scene, discovering forests, high mountains, waterfalls, clouds floating in an immense sky, men on hilly paths, birds in flight. So this is the idea that we also have about landscape. But the Chinese painter had a spiritual bent of mind, and his meaning of his painting was absolutely different. "Look, sire," said the painter, "in this cave at the foot of the mountain dwells the spirit." The painter clapped his hands and the entrance to the cave opened. The inside is splendid, wonderful, majestic, beyond anything words can convey. So the painter clapped the hand to open the cave which was at the foot of the mountain. This was not visible to the emperor. The inside, which was splendid, was indescribable. "Please let me show your majesty the way." The painter entered the cave. The painter wanted the emperor to see through his vision, and therefore when he entered the cave, but the entrance closed behind him. And before the astonished emperor could move or utter a word, the painting had vanished from the wall. Not a trace of Wu Daozi's brush was left, and the artist was never seen again in this world. So this Wu Daozi story, or this painter's story, tells that the Chinese painters had the conceptual painting. Their painting mainly wanted the viewers to look the painting through his mind, his imagination. Such stories played an important part in China's classical education. The books of Confucius and Zhangzi are full of them. They help the master to guide his disciple in the right direction. So in this way, Confucius, a great philosopher, and Zhangzi, these philosophers from China, they had written numerous books on such stories, including such stories which became a part of China's classical education. How to lead a good life, how to lead a pious life. They used to guide their disciples in the right direction with the help of these anecdotes. Now, in contrast to that story, another famous one about a painter who would not draw the eye of a dragon he had painted for fear it would fly out of the painting. So there's another story of the another painter who had drawn a dragon, but he was afraid of drawing the eyes of the dragon because he believed that it would fly away. So the Chinese art is related to spiritualism. Now the author has told yet another story about a master blacksmith, Quentin Metsys, who lived in the 15th century Antwerp. Antwerp is a city in Belgium. Now this story from my native Flanders that I find most representative of Western painting. Western painting, the European painting or the European art. In 15th century Antwerp, a master blacksmith called Quentin Metsys fell in love with the painter's daughter. The father would not accept a son-in-law in such a profession. Because he was a blacksmith. I believe everybody knows who is a blacksmith. Okay. So Quentin sneaked into the painter's studio and painted a fly on his latest panel with such delicate realism that the master tried to swat it away before he realized what had happened. Quentin was immediately admitted as an apprentice into his studio. He married his beloved and went on to become one of the most famous painters of his age. These two stories illustrate what each form of art is trying to achieve: a perfect, illusionistic likeness in Europe, the essence of inner life and spirit in Asia. So in this story also you can see this is absolutely different, because the fly that was painted by the blacksmith was so real that even the painter himself could not feel that it was just a painting. He felt it to be real, and so he tried to swat it. When he found that the blacksmith whom he was rejecting for his profession, he found him eligible for his daughter, and his daughter got married to the blacksmith, Quentin Metsys. Quentin Metsys also, when he became an apprentice to the painter, he also became a famous painter of his age. It also requires the active participation of the viewer, who decides at what pace he will travel through the painting. A participation which is physical as well as mental. The Chinese painter does not want you to borrow his eyes. He wants you to enter his mind. The landscape is an inner one, a spiritual and conceptual space. So this is what is the difference between Chinese art and European art. The Chinese painter, he wants you to enter his mind to understand the painting painted by him. He does not want the viewers to borrow his eyes, because the landscape painted by him is an inner one, a spiritual and a conceptual space. Now this conceptual space in a Chinese painting is expressed as shanshui, literally mountain water, which used together represent the word landscape. More than two elements of an image, these represent two complementary poles reflecting the Taoist view of the universe. The mountain is yang, reaching vertically towards heaven. Table, warm and dry in the sun, while the water is yin, horizontal and resting on the earth, fluid, moist and cool. So yang and yin are the two complementary poles which are used as sanctuary. The interaction of yin, the receptive, feminine aspect of universal energy, and its counterpart, yang, active and masculine, is of course a fundamental notion of Taoism. Now, Taoism philosophy believes in these two, which are expressed as shanshui, and they together form the landscape. Yang reflect the vertically upwards, that is the mountains and the warm and dry in the sun, this the heaven towards rising towards the heaven, the mountains, they are yang, whereas the water which is still is yin. So yang and yin, according to Taoism, are the fundamentals of Feng Shui. What is often overlooked is an essential third element, the middle void where their interaction takes place. Now, between yang and yin, there is a middle void. Void means the empty space. This can be compared with the yogic practice of pranayama: breathe in, retain, and breathe out. Similarly, the author believes that it is equivalent to pranayama, which we believe in India, that breathe in and breathe out. In between these two, there is a void, there is a vacant space, because there we retain. The suspension of the breath is the void where meditation occurs. The middle void is essential. Nothing can happen without it. So there is a void in between the breaths. One breath which is in and the other one, another breath which is going out. We have an empty space, and that empty space, according to the author, is a very important and essential part, because without it, the cycle of breathing in and breathing out cannot happen. Hence the importance of the white unpainted space in Chinese landscape. This is also where man finds a fundamental role. So in the painting, the Chinese painters, they leave a space unpainted in between yang and yin. Now, that space in the landscape seems to be occupied by man. In that space between heaven and earth, he becomes the conduit of communication between both poles of the universe. His presence is essential, even if it is only suggested. Even if it is only suggested means it is just a suggestion, an imagination of the Chinese painter, that man occupies a fundamental role and a position somewhere in between heaven and earth, the yang and the yin. He becomes the conduit of communication. Conduit, one which communicates with both, having a dual communication between both the poles of the universe. His presence is essential. Far from being lost or suppressed by the lofty peaks, he is, in Francois Cheng's wonderful expression, the eye of the landscape. So, Francois Cheng expressed man's role and position in the landscape of Chinese painters as the eye of the landscape. This is an excerpt taken from Landscape of the Soul, Ethics and Spirituality, Spirituality in Chinese Paintings. So Nathalie Troberoy, the author, has described Chinese art and European art, and also she has described the contrast or the difference between the two. So I hope everybody must have understood this chapter, and please read the chapter thoroughly. Thank you.